All right. Hello. Looks like we're getting some people along with us. Just to let everyone know, you are not visible. You are not with audio settings, so we can't hear you or anything. So for privacy reasons, I just want to let you know that we are recording this because we will be releasing clips and things to social media, but you don't need to worry about a thing. So just gonna have another moment or two while people are joining us. So yeah, hope everybody's doing great today. There is a chat feature, so if you want to bring up the chat and ask questions, please do that. I'm going to repeat this again just in a moment or two, just to make sure we've got everybody up to speed. So glad you're joining us. And feel free to say where you're from or where you're tuning in from, joining us from, whatever. And yeah, say hello to each other. Don't be shy. And next, just perusing my questions for you, Alicia.
Getting ready.
Yeah. All right, we'll just wait another maybe minute. Oh, hello from Shropshire.
Nice.
Hi, George. I'm assuming you're George and not using somebody else's account or something, because sometimes that happens. You ever see somebody on a meeting and it's, you know, they've
That's
borrowed their
happened. Yeah.
roommate's iPad or something. It's great. Confirming it is George. Awesome. So what's the weather like up in Shropshire right now, George? We've just had I'm in North Cornwall, and Alicia, you're in
I'm
Bristol.
back in Bristol now, yeah.
Yeah. So have you got the storms yet, George? Because we had some storms come through. Yeah, cloud and some drizzle.
Hmm. Yeah, it's been really on and off here, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't think it's been as bad as it has been for you,
Yeah. Anyway.
though.
Right. Okay. So we are just a few minutes past the top of the hour, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. And if anybody wants to join us, we will have them join us. How about that? So just to let everyone know once more, we are recording this. You are not visible. We cannot hear you. You have no reason to have privacy concerns. We're recording this because we'd like to share it on, clips of this and whatnot on social media, YouTube, things like that later. Assuming it doesn't all just go terribly pear-shaped, which I'm sure it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. We're all professionals here. But yeah, so we are recording, and yeah. I guess I'll start the official meeting now. Right, I'm going to turn off the chat feature for myself, but don't worry, anybody that's with us today, we have somebody on hand. So the official, hi everyone, thank you for joining us for Daler-Rowney's live artist chat. We're happy to have you join us. I'm Jen Dixon. I'm a British American multidisciplinary artist and art educator, and I'm your host for today's event. We have with us Stephanie from Daler-Rowney. She's the digital marketing manager, and she is here to take care of your every need in the chat room. So we do have somebody keeping an eye on that and taking care of you. So ask questions and, like I said, say where you're from. We'd love to know, and say hello to each other. So that chat's for you. I'll be talking with today's guest. So we have Alicia Hayden, and if you have any questions for her, pop them in there. So let's get started. So Alicia, thank you for joining us today. Tell us about yourself, who you are, and where are you based?
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be chatting to you today, Jen. So I'm Alicia. I'm originally from North Yorkshire, and I'm now based in Bristol. And I'm a multidisciplinary wildlife artist, but I'm also a creative conservationist. So I work across lots of different disciplines, not just art, but also film, animation, writing, photography. I kind of just love all of the arts, and then I really love the natural world. So anything that I can sort of used to tell stories is very much up my street. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Well, I've had a look at your website, and you've got a new film that you've just put out. You really marry all of these different disciplines. So everything from very illustrative y- uh, sketches and paintings, and you do photography, and all of that seems to come together with also animation and your filmmaking. So tell us a little bit about how you marry all of these different things together, and also it's your chance to tell us just a little bit about your film that's just come out too.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I think a lot of them kind of can cross-pollinate each other. So I started in photography, like that's kind of one of the first disciplines I kind of really delved into. And I think when you're doing photography, you kind of learn to look at things quite closely. You kind of have that attention to detail. And I think that transfers really well into my artwork, but also it means that sometimes I'll take reference images that I can then use. I have to admit, like often I can't photograph the things that I want to be drawing. So normally it will be like other people's things. But that can be a really nice way of kind of merging those two things. And then from photography, I kind of then started transitioning into film just because that kind of had, it felt like it had a little bit more of that storytelling thing. And I liked the idea of merging writing and kind of art with it. And so that's kind of when animation came into play. And I started teaching myself that in 2022. And yeah, just again, I think because of being an artist, I was very much kind of like trying to find my own style with the animation, trying to use a lot of color. And I liked the idea of, again, like some of my favorite films to watch are animation or have animated parts to them. So I think kind of incorporating that into like normal footage was really important for me. And I think with my like film that's just come out, so that's all about curlews, which are these moorland birds. Well, they're found in lots of different habitats, but I associate them with moorland. But they've got a really long bill and an amazing call. But they're a red listed bird species. So my film is looking at them, and it's part shot with like camera footage and part filmed. Sorry, part animated. But it's also got an art piece running through it. So like when I'm creating art, I often am filming myself. I'm taking behind the scenes photos. I think most artists do that now.
Mm.
And when I was working out how to string the film together, um, I'd spoken to so many people that it felt like a really natural thing to do an art piece inspired by it and inspired by the noise that curlews make and this whole idea of bringing attention to a red listed
Okay,
species.
I'm going to interrupt you briefly because you've mentioned this call that they do. You don't actually know how to do that, do you? Is there
I
are you
I mean, people can do it. I can't
yeah.
whistle, so it's like a
Oh, okay.
whistling call. Um, I really wish I could do it, but honestly, if I try, I would just embarrass myself.
Fair
But
enough.
it's like a really nice like whooping whistle. Like the way I would describe it is kind of like this sort of shape.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
literally like, I mean,
So
for me,
it's
it's really
like its
visual.
name almost, you know,
It's
you've
yeah,
got a curl to
it
it.
feels very
Curve.
curly, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
But
that's
I'd recommend
great.
googling it because it is really nice, and there's lots of those calls in the film as well. Like the musicians I worked with were really good at incorporating that call in into their songs, and I kind of laid it in as well. I mean, it's a really wicked call. I wish I could do it.
So
um,
you mentioned that you got into animation
mhm.
in 2022, and
Yeah.
you know, as we all know, the world was in a little bit of a strange place for a while there. A lot of people picked up creative processes and creative hobbies and new creative directions during that time. Do you feel like that was did that contribute to like a freedom for you to, you know, I know I personally
Mhm.
I had so much more time because so many things had shut down. So do you feel like that allowed you some extra time to sort of slot in these new skills into your creative process?
Yeah, I think so. So during the kind of pandemic, like it was when it started, I was home, so I was in the middle of doing my degree. I was literally halfway through, and so I was at home studying and kind of working for it. But yeah, I did have more time because even though my degree was
Mm,
intense, like you're not sort of cooking for yourself all the time because you're at home with your parents. You're kind of taking it in turns, and so it does kind of mean that you did have
mm.
more time. And that was kind of the year that I got into wildlife artivism, which is like a form of sort of activism. I'm using art, but for natural history, it's sort of a form of science communication. wildlife artivism specifically was founded by another wildlife artist called Martin Eveling. And I kind of had stumbled across his work. And there was a tiger piece he did, I think in maybe 2019. He's since redone it. But the original one, I just really liked it. And I had lots of ideas for creating because I was drawing every day anyway. And I was reading about whales as part of my studies. And then I created this piece called the Whale Song, which is actually here. There it
Ah, that's the one that,
is.
and that's on your website. I've
Yeah.
seen that. And you said you did that with Biro.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So I did that piece in 2020, I think 2021, but that kind of sort of period, and it was very much, yeah, I think having the sort of time to sort of work on it,
Hmm.
which came from the pandemic and sort of being at home. And I mean that's on a piece of mount board.
Yeah.
So like the middle bit when you take it
Yep.
out, it's on one of them.
I use
And
those all the time.
they're
All the
so
time.
useful.
I've got a box of those just yeah, so when you cut the mount or the mat, depending on which way you want to call it, in framing, there's always like a chunk out of the middle, and they are so
They're
good. So
useful.
yeah,
They're so
you
useful.
reuse it. I use them for
Yeah.
painting little sample pieces or whatever, testing techniques, you
Mm-hmm.
know, always good to save those things. So
Oh,
with
literally.
with your visual skills, with the filmmaking and with the animation and all that. So it just seems like uh, is the drawing and the more sort of physical traditional art that you do, is that something that has come as a result of your observations out there in the world? Is that how you came to drawing and painting, or were you doing it from a tiny age?
I was doing it from a tiny age.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was very lucky. Like the house that me and my sister grew up in, like my parents pretty creative and they've always kind of given us access to like pens and paper when we were little. And so we just used to draw and doodle a lot. Like we used to make our own little characters to play with and cut out. And I mean I feel like other people have had this as well, but you know when you have a little art gallery in your kitchen where you put pieces up, so we had that.
Yeah.
And I think all of the kind of early pieces were all sort of like rainbows and flowers and things, and little people, but with like weird proportions because you're trying to understand how to draw them when you're very little.
So
Um,
did you gravitate towards animals when you were young? Because you know a lot of kids when they're developing their skills, at a young
mhm.
age, they cling to, or they gravitate towards rather like robots and cities and cars, or horses and dragons and things like that. So were you definitely more like leaning in the natural world kind of camp?
Yeah, I think so. I remember it's a really weird piece to remember, but I can remember doing like a little plane design for a Blue Peter competition. A separate story, but I was completely gutted that I didn't win. But I was about
Oh,
six. There was no way I was going to win. But anyway, that's a separate story. But the little design I did with butterflies and bees and flowers, so it's clearly something. I think just being in North Yorkshire and both my parents have always been really connected to the natural world, which has meant has been really lucky because it's meant that me and my sister have always learned about it. And that's
yeah.
something that not many people have. And so I think it has always been a really natural connection for me. Yeah.
Well, moving on with kind of the natural world, and your leaning towards the animals and nature. I mean, it was more animals than, say, trees and things like that, or did you find that they were both interesting subjects for yourself?
Oh, I think that's hard. I think I did draw trees, but I think I remember drawing I drew trees and flowers. I think I do remember drawing animals more. And I think now I like drawing sort of like landscapes which incorporate
Hmm.
plants and things, and especially more recently, I think just because plant blindness is such a big thing where people, if you think about the natural world, you think about the animals, you don't think about
Hmm.
there's a big redwood. Like no one really
There's an entire
considers.
set behind
Yeah,
the players that are the animals, isn't?
yeah.
So
There's an
yeah,
interesting. Yeah, like if you show people photos, like if you show people a photo of a tiger, I remember they did this in lectures and they go, "What species are in here?" And everyone goes, "A tiger," and no
yeah,
one looks at the fact it's in the jungle. So I
yeah.
think plant blindness is a big thing, and I think that's something that I really want to try and tackle maybe by doing more sort of like landscapey stuff in my work. But yeah, a lot of what I do is
It's an interesting it's an interesting thing because when I'm teaching or even doing my own artwork, there is this pull to just focus on the main character of whatever you're drawing or painting, and it almost seems like um, we rush perhaps the background, or maybe we don't pay quite as much attention to the background.
Mhm.
Do you find that that's a pull for you too, that you have to more consciously think about the other compositional elements of whatever you're working on?
I think it really depends on the piece, to be honest, because like sometimes, so like with this one,
Mm,
there is no background.
yeah.
It's just it's a sort of ice, it's a floating whale, I guess.
Mm,
I hope that's not how anyone sees it, but I mean it is if you're
yeah.
looking at it from an environmental perspective. The piece, there are two pieces I've just started. One, it's more similar to this, so it is again out of situ. It's not in an environment. It's looking at something, and it's looking at an environmental issue, but I have still stripped it out of its environment.
Mm.
And I think for me, that's because that makes it more powerful. It's more
Well,
obvious.
that's creative editing, and that's something that
Yeah.
you do in filmmaking just the same.
Mhm.
So that in itself is a skill, being able to isolate like the point of whatever you're
Yeah.
creating, isn't it?
But then I
Very
think
cool.
when I'm thinking about like doing sort of portraits and stuff, then it often yeah, it sort of does become a bit of a because it's almost like you're pulling focus, right? You're focusing on
Yeah.
your hero character, and then you're kind of not making as much. So I guess when I'm trying to do landscapes and incorporate plants and greenery, it is a
Mm,
more conscious decision. So there's a piece I did there's a few months ago now, and it's the piece that I spent longest on, and that's an entire the focus is the landscape and the little wildebeest in the middle. And
mm,
that landscape I did pay a lot of attention to because that was a huge part of the piece. And the piece I've just started recently, it's a similar kind of thing where the landscape is equally important and the animals are important too, but the landscape is also important. So
mm.
I think it's something I'm starting to explore more, but I think like historically and even some of my kind of recent past work, it hasn't been something I've looked at as much as I should have.
Mm. And it sounds like the more you practice that, the more you practice that intentional,
Mm-hmm.
focus pull, like you said, like in
Yeah.
filmmaking, you can find clever ways with your materials to diminish a background or bring it more forward as
Mm-hmm.
more of a full piece or a full story in that composition. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, so what do you think you gravitate most towards, like for materials?
Mm-hmm.
Are you drawing as your core passion? Are you painting, or do you like to just be a little butterfly between the different mediums? Tell me what do you pick up when either you're lost or you're
Mm-hmm.
excited? What's the first material you?
Ooh. Okay, well, I think there are three questions there. So I'll
Yeah.
I'll do lost, excited, and then just general. Um, if I'm lost, I will almost definitely find something I've not used before or something I've not used for a while because I think if I'm in a kind
Ah.
of rut and I'm not sure what I want to do, then I'll find something completely different.
So
The
you don't
latest
go
thing,
to a comfort zone. You
no, I
actually
think
actively avoid your comfort zone.
yeah,
Oh,
I
that's
really try and
brilliant.
find something else because I think that like I think it challenges me because I think if I'm in that kind of place where I'm like I don't know what to do, like it's not working,
Hmm.
then everything I've already sort of tried everything. It feels like my brain's kind of gone, no, nothing works. So then
Hmm.
it's trying to find something that my brain goes, oh, that might work. And the most recent thing is liquid charcoal. I played around with that for a bit, and that was really fun.
Ah,
And
it's
I never
so
used it
cool,
before.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Have you ever made your own liquid charcoal? Because
no, you can make
oh
it.
yeah, yeah. I'll talk with you another time about
Okay.
that. But it involves gum arabic, so similar
Ooh,
to making a watercolor from the raw
okay.
pigments. It's
Mhm.
very, very fun. But yeah,
Mm.
charcoal is probably my go-to. So
Okay.
you choose something that is out of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
and I go right back to the most
To the
primitive, basic
yeah.
material ever. And I find that kind of brings my focus together, I
Just because you
guess.
feel more comfortable, I guess.
Yeah, and I think and I know you'll appreciate this, being so intertwined in the natural world as you are, the just basic primal nature of a bit of burnt wood. I think there's
Hmm.
something just so beautiful about it, and how that was, the first material that, they did in caves and things like
Yeah.
that. There's something, and it's just earth, you're holding this natural thing in your hands. Do you ever make your own materials or anything like that? Like while you're out and about, do you find ways to incorporate them maybe in a mixed media fashion or in your sketchbooks while you're out?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think. I feel like I'm sure I've used nettles before, but like not, I think just by mushing them around and
Mm,
mixing them with water. It's not something I've done. I mean, like if I'm sketching, like increasingly, I think over the last kind of year, I have a little sketchbook that I take everywhere, and that sort of comes and I just do little
what
landscapes and
what kind of sketchbook? Because I know
so.
everybody's gonna want to know. So do you have
So this
do
is
you take like a
really
mixed
random.
media one around, or do you just, yeah, what kind of,
So I don't even know if it's a proper sketchbook, but you can get blank notebooks where they've
yeah,
got a book and they've stripped the book out. It's one
yeah.
of those. I really love
Wow.
it. I don't know. It's
There's
just quite different.
a lot of people like to collage in old diaries and things like
Yeah,
that too, because the paper and the pages are good. They might be out of date, but or using
yeah,
old books, vintage books, and
yeah.
using those for print tests and things like that. I think it's fantastic. So what kind of
Yeah.
materials are you using right now the most? I know you like ink.
Hmm.
Are there some particular maybe Daler-Rowney products that you're
Hmm.
using more than others? Like, what's your go-to in those?
I think there's a few. I think I use FW inks a lot. Like that's very
Love
much
those.
like yeah, it's just something. They're kind of one of the kind of medias that I think got me really excited a few years
Mm.
ago. When my then boyfriend he gave me some, and I was like, what are these? And I like spent ages trying to work out how to use them, and then suddenly it clicked. I was like,
Mm.
oh, this is how you use them. And yeah, I didn't really look back after that. But I think yeah, FW inks
Do you
was
do brushwork with them, or dip
yeah.
pens, or do you use bamboo pens? What
Ooh,
what are you using with your FW inks?
not bamboo pens, but I would love to try them. But
Oh,
that's another discussion for another day. But I use brushes a lot, so just like normal.
mm.
Well, I mean, just like literally not any one of these, like straight
Oh,
in, and
that's one of the graduate brush. Yeah.
that
Oh,
is one of
grad.
the
I
graduate
use them.
brushes.
I use them all the time. Yep.
Yeah, I've got oh my god, they're all in front of me to be honest. But I've got so
Cool.
many different kinds of ones. But yeah, I honestly all my brushes get quite battered because I think some artists would get quite upset about my brush etiquette because I tend to just sort of leave them. Like, I mean, one of my favorite brushes, I've got it kicking around. I mean, there's some that are like that where you literally can't,
Yeah.
you know.
I
But
think I
anyway, yeah.
think well, I think you can have like a range of these different levels of grubbiness, I guess, or
Hmm.
dirtiness with the because the marks that they create are
This
going to
is
be new
it.
and unique. Like some of my favorite brushes,
I
like
mean,
every time I wear a brush out, yeah,
like,
you're gonna
yeah.
get amazing marks with something like that. But
Hmm.
anytime one of my brushes wears out, like one of my favorites is like a number 6 Aquafine. And I
Hmm.
use that with so much watercolor stuff
Hmm.
that it starts off as a pointed round, but it gets less pointed and less pointed.
Yeah.
But I won't ever get rid of them because
Oh
they've
yeah,
got
because they become something
this
else.
personality that builds over years
Hmm.
of use. So that's
Yeah.
that's cool. But so FW inks, you're really
Have to
into
be ranked.
those.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then I'm really into at the moment. To be honest, because I think of moving around quite a bit, I'm really into both using the oh my god Lyra pencils
Yeah.
combined with the little well these little guys the Lyra graduate fineliners, and I like using both of them together because then you can do your little sketch, and I try and use
Mm,
these sort of very contrasty colors and colors that aren't necessarily there in these things because
mm,
I think you can see colors everywhere. But I think, you can look at a landscape and maybe the landscape is blue. And
mm,
then I might put in yellows and pinks and stuff because
mm.
I'm like, well, I can see these colors too.
Well, yeah, punching in like complementary colors or something like
Hmm.
that, or maybe just something that
Something
I would
different.
call like a wild card, like a wild
Yeah.
card color. You know,
Hmm.
do you have colors that you actively avoid?
Oh, that feels so mean for the colors.
Don't
I
worry, I won't tell my box of crayons. It's okay.
they're listening. No, I don't know actually, because I think different products need different colors. Because then my brain was like, "Well, do you use brown?" I was like, "Yeah, no, I
Hmm.
do," because lots of animals are brown. And
I used to avoid orange and I used to avoid pink.
do you know
And
why?
oddly enough, I avoided purple.
I have thought of one, by the way. But why did you
Uh,
avoid those colors, firstly?
oh, oh, you're interviewing me now. But
I'm just curious. What have you got against orange?
I didn't know what to do with them. Like
Mhm,
I think I always had this thing about I'm not the girliest girl. I was never
mhm,
attracted to pink. And I'm
sure.
not sort of a flowery type of girl or anything. So I just didn't get on with pink. But you know what? It's one of those things where when you get brave and you just try it, and you might feel uncomfortable with it at first, but then it's like anything that you are learning to do. You just learn to work with it. And now,
Mhm.
yeah, anything goes. I don't think I have a color that I'm even using fluorescent colors like the neon colors every
Mm,
once in a while, sparingly, but I'm learning how to use those. Is
mhm,
there like tell me a little bit about is there something like that that you would avoid, or is there a
mm.
medium that you would need to, feel a little braver about?
Yeah. Well, firstly, the color I thought of. Well, actually, I do kind of agree with your point about fluorescent colors once you said
Mm.
it. 'Cause I was like, yeah, I
They're
use those a
tricky to
lot.
use.
They're
Yeah.
hard. I think they need to be used sparingly.
Mm,
But the color, it's not that I avoid using it, but like when I'm using like paints, like inks, gouache,
mm.
what color? Black. I try and challenge myself sometimes to not use
Yeah.
black.
Well, you
Just
can mix it
you
from
can
so
make
many
it.
things. Yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely. And
so
it's
I think
always going to be more natural and fit in a little
yeah.
better.
So I guess I don't know if that kind of counts, but I think it is kind of avoiding
It
that
does.
pure black sometimes. Like and if I use
Mm,
it, it would use be used so sparingly. But
mm,
it was something I set myself a couple of years ago as a challenge, like make a whole series of pieces not using black. And
mm,
it worked really well. And I think it kind of opens up this other world where once you realize that you don't need black,
mm.
you can make it and you can do other
Well,
things that
in the
look
natural
better.
world,
Yeah.
there's very little that is true black.
Yeah.
I mean,
And once you
even,
start looking, you realize
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, it probably enhances the things that you put together, that are reflecting the natural world in some way. Because I mean,
Yeah.
even in filmmaking, the
Mm.
shadowy areas,
It's not
they're
black.
they're going to lean warm or cool
Yeah.
or yeah,
Because even
excellent.
even Burrow, I don't know if that's true black because it's it is black, but it's kind of
Yeah.
gray. Like it's I mean that's kind of the exception. I think whenever I do charcoal and Burrow, that is gonna be black and white.
And I think
Um
Biro ink has that almost ever so slight mother of pearl or
mhm,
iridescence to it too. And that must be something that's in the ink, like
yeah.
shellac or something. I don't know, but right. So one of the questions that was submitted, I'm going to jump ahead. I was going to ask these at the
Mhm.
end, but it kind of fits right here. Um, One of our submitted questions were actually both would fit right here since we're talking about materials. So the first question is, I like mixed media, but do you ever feel like you're being naughty and not being a purist?
Um, ooh. I mean, I I don't think so. I think it's nice mixing it up and doing a whole mishmash of things. I don't think there's any right or wrong. I think that's what's nice about art because you kind of can do anything, and that's what's really exciting. Like I've painted in coffee and mixed that with stuff, and I mean, there's some of the pieces. A piece I was doing earlier was I got I was using watercolors on canvas paper actually, it's really nice. But anyway, I was using watercolors, and then I had like a normal like an ink pen that you just write with, and I
Yeah.
was mixing that, and I just got a load of water. It's like run the ink, like, and I don't think that it makes it
Mm.
bad by mixing pens with watercolors with water. Like, I mean that's
I th
quite a tame example, but
I think
yeah,
anything that fulfills your creative vision or helps you, come closer to achieving it. I think,
Hmm.
why limit yourself
Yeah,
in a way?
exactly. Like,
So,
and I think especially when you're thinking about, like, I think for me as well, doing multiple disciplines, like that's
yes.
really exciting. Like the
Mm,
idea of merging art with film or like animation with writing, like that's really
yeah.
cool. Like it's different. It's kind of, I don't know. I find it really exciting.
I know you, excuse me. I know you're a lot younger than yeah,
No.
that's not what made me cough, but it's true. But are you familiar with a film called Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
I am.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Because that came out before you were born, I think. But I feel so old saying that, but that was so groundbreaking and exciting from a
Yeah.
filmmaking point of view because it had these live action scenes with fantastic animation just
Hmm.
interjected, and they were as real a characters as the live
Hmm.
action actors. And so yeah, it just reminded me of that about, your definition of multidisciplinary and mixed media also includes moving picture or
Hmm. Yeah.
still pictures, with your photography.
Hmm.
So that's very cool.
Yeah.
So you don't feel naughty.
I,
Is it fair to say it excites you?
yeah, I
It
think it
yeah.
excites me rather than making me feel like I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. And I like too the challenge of learning what goes together, like what will
Yeah.
layer or what will mix. And there are some things like, like I know I use loads of the System 3 stuff from
Hmm.
Daler-Rowney,
Systems 3 is really good for background.
and I've used that stuff for years. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
not even saying that just because we're on this event
Hmm.
sponsored by Daler-Rowney. I have really always used those because there's something you can count on and it's
Hmm.
reliable, and you can pick anything from that range and know
Hmm.
that they're going to go together. And then, that just seems to radiate out to a bunch of the other lines. Like,
Hmm.
I'm not afraid of mixing like the Aquafine inks with something I'm doing in FW inks or
Yeah.
whatever.
I
You
think they
just have
work
to
well.
try it.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. You spend a lot of time investigating and experimenting. And when you do, what kind of thing are you experimenting with? And
Yeah, for sure. I think all artists kind of do to a degree because you don't want to just. I think it's just you're quite curious when you're making pieces and seeing what works. Like one of the pieces I tried out last year, it was my tree that was in the first of the year this year, and that was in charcoal. So that was me experimenting with charcoal for a bit and
mm,
seeing what I could make. The pieces I'm working on at the moment, a lot of them are experimenting. I've kind of gone back to using pens, with pen now pairing them with like inks and stuff. So the
mm,
piece I'm doing that's upstairs is canvas, and then I've used marker pen, but then I'm using inks that I've used
mm.
to try and bring them out and trying to look at movement. And I have to admit, like I'm not sure how it's turning out at the moment. I really like how it's
Mm.
looking, but it's not fully formed in my head. And I think it's because I'm experimenting. That piece feels way more fluid.
Well, and
Whereas,
and you can always iterate, there's
yeah,
always another canvas that you
exactly.
can try
Mess up.
again, or yeah.
Yeah.
No, 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 there's no wasted paper,
There's no
there's no
mistakes.
wasted
Yeah.
canvas. No, no, it's
No.
all learning.
I've
And
repainted canvases so many times, honestly. I think
yeah,
there's one that's been repainted about 10 times. It's,
I
if
think
you
it's
if you look through it, it'll be
necessary.
really
You know,
interesting. Like,
it's like later when one of those when that piece is in a
mhm.
museum and they need to clean it or something, and the conservators take it back and they x-ray it, they're going to see like 10 different
Yeah.
paintings underneath.
And I can be like, what
Well,
was she doing? Like,
well,
was she?
that actually ties in kind of nicely with another submitted question, and it's a two-parter.
Okay.
So, do you ever doubt your abilities as an artist? And the second part is, do you ever suffer from the scary white page syndrome? So, knowing that you're layering on the same piece, is that, and I'm asking this part, is that part of it? Do you not want to dirty another clean one? Does it feel better
Mm.
to go back and rework something?
I think
So
it's
yeah,
okay.
tell us. So yes, do you doubt
Okay.
your abilities, and do you have white page or blank canvas syndrome?
I think everybody doubts their abilities. I definitely do. I think it's really, really normal. I think I don't think I've met a single creative person who hasn't had several days a month where they go, "Oh my God, I absolutely can't do this. I'm rubbish. I hate what I make,
Mm.
and I'm never going to succeed." And I'm pretty sure that's quite normal. Um,
Imposter syndrome.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason why so many people know that term.
hmm And I think I mean I think that that yeah, I mean the words. But yeah, I think that's quite normal. I
Mm,
think it is because I think sometimes you'll make pieces and you'll lose your own confidence. You're like, oh, I don't like it. But then equally, I guess I don't do this very much, but I should remind myself by looking at pieces that
mm,
are like had on my like that one and stuff like that and go, oh well, at least I've made one good
mm.
thing. So I
Something
think
something I like to do that reminds me that I'm not bad and I'm not a failure. Maybe I'm new at something and it makes me feel
mhm,
uncomfortable, or I'm trying something and I'm not quite sure how to accomplish it yet. But I like going to museums and galleries, and I get really up close
mhm,
to, something that is by a master,
mhm,
a long dead famous artist or something. And you get up close to these things and you see what you would consider in your own work flaws.
mhm.
And that's always really interesting for helping to, I don't know, kind of reframe things a little bit.
Well, I think as well, it's just the kind of, I guess the kind of thing that I think is that nothing is ever going to be perfect. You're never going to make the piece that is in your
Mm,
head that you're wanting to make. It's never going to happen. It's always going to look a bit different. Sometimes it might look really different because creative process is like that. But I think I always reach a point when I'm working, where I'll be like, you know what, I'm happy with this. This is good enough. This is a representation of
mm.
what I can do now. And maybe in 3 years I'll do something completely different.
I
But
think
right now,
that's a real
yeah.
skill, is knowing when to stop. So
hmm
when so you do have pieces that you just find that place of peace and you can just let it go and move on?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. I think just because I'll kind of look at it and I'll go, yeah, no, I think that's done. That's as much as I can do on it. Like it
Mm,
looks I'm happy with it and I think it's doing what I want it to do. And I'm not looking at it and going, oh, I could do this. And it might be
mm.
like I look at it in a few months and go, oh, I could do that better now. But
I think
that
that's
moment
a
in time,
real, yeah, that's
yeah,
a real skill to know when to stop
hmm
and let another canvas take over or another sheet of
yeah,
paper take over, because reworking the same piece over and over and over can make you
it,
just feel bad after a
hmm
while, I think.
yeah,
So,
because you're not finishing anything, and I think it depends on the
yeah.
person. But I think for me, I do like finishing things eventually.
Mm.
Like I like being able to go done now. That's quite nice.
Do you fill your sketchbooks? Or
So
do you abandon your
uh,
sketchbooks and
I
then
have
pick up a new one, or
Yeah, I think with the exception of the little one that I take everywhere, I use a lot of different sketchbooks, and like even that one that I take everywhere, I kind of use sketches because I want to work them up bigger on something else. Like they're almost like little thoughts.
what do you
Everything else,
record? What do you sketch when you're out and about? What catches
um,
your eye typically?
all sorts. I mean, often the easiest thing to do is like landscapes and viewscapes and architecture, like those sort of things where you just look at it and go, "That's quite nice." And I'll just sit and sketch it for like.
What do you feel that you're satisfying by doing that? Do you feel like you're learning more compositional skills or more relationship between, elements, or what,
Yeah,
or are you actively practicing editing your scenes? What are you doing when you go out and you find something to sketch? What draws your eye?
I think it's maybe the connection. I think it helps you have a connection to the place.
Mm,
I'm trying to think I was traveling for work recently and there were lots of stray dogs as well as really nice architecture and I sketched both. And
mm,
the dogs I think I was sketching because they were very characterful. Like they were often
mm.
sitting um or like walking and doing things that was really like kind of captures your imagination, but also kind of it just felt you do feel connected, I think. And so doing those
Mm,
little sketches, like there was one dog sitting with his paws like this, and he was really fun to sketch because he just looked like such a gentleman.
yeah.
And so I think it was getting his character across, but in I try and make them really quick so I don't spend very long on the sketches because I
Mm,
think the other point is that it's just kind of a little moment in time and you're doing it in colors that are not always they're always wrong in
mm,
the sense that they're not wrong, but like they're never really the true
mm,
colors of what I'm seeing. It's what I'm perceiving, it's what I'm feeling. It's like, well,
mm.
this dog feels orange, so I'm drawing him orange, but obviously he is not orange.
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
So
But
I think
you're
yeah,
not letting,
connection.
yeah, you're pulling in different kinds of emotions and
Yeah,
feelings from the moment. So it's not even necessarily full reality based stuff, but
no,
you're I love that.
yeah,
I love that. I
yeah.
love the orange dog. The
I'll send you a
gentlemanly
picture of the
orange
orange
dog.
dog.
Yeah.
He's just chilling.
So do you suffer from that scary white page syndrome or blank canvas syndrome? Because
Yeah, I
yeah.
I'm not sure to be honest. I
Do you have a ritual in how you begin something or how you approach something? Like maybe you don't know what you're going to do or you don't know how to achieve it. So,
yeah, it depends, I think. Like sometimes so there's a piece that started at the weekend and that's been brewing in my head for a few weeks. Like it's pretty fully formed. I know what it wants to look like. I did a little preliminary sketch. So that one, I guess, is an example where it definitely hasn't existed because it's been in my brain as something I've just been letting kind of simmer, and I can see it visually, and I know
mm,
what I want it to look like. So therefore, the page is not intimidating because I know how I want to fill it.
mm.
Um,
Do you already instinctively have an idea about what materials you're going to use?
for
Yeah.
that piece, yeah, but not always. But I think often, if I'm thinking about specific, so for example, for artivism, often it's really specific and it's trying to look at something very specific like noise pollution or wildfires, and then the media feels really natural because it's whatever feels
Mm,
best to tell that story. So for charcoal, sorry, for wildfires it was charcoal.
yeah.
The piece was also called charcoal and that was quite a
And that
natural
makes
thing.
sense
It
in
does
a
make
full
sense.
sort of way. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so I think often with those pieces the media feels quite like natural. Like I'm not having to think about it. It's almost like it's just handed. Like my brain just
Mm,
knows that this should be done in this media. But sometimes I think, yeah, if I want to draw and I don't know what to draw, or I haven't got, or maybe I even have ideas, but they're just not quite right yet. Then yeah, I think you do because I think you're just it's this really frustrating thing where you're like, I have something creative that I want to let out, but I don't know how to do it, and I haven't, none of the ideas are quite working, and
mm.
then it's really frustrating because it's a little bit like you're in a little box and you're just like, I want to get out, but I can't
Yeah.
work out.
And
So I
you're the
guess,
only one that can achieve it.
yeah,
It's just where do you begin? What
yeah. So I think
I
then I
yeah.
do, yeah. But I think it definitely depends. It's not always, but I think, yeah, I think sometimes you have to because I think it's
Yeah.
hard to be constantly creative. Like
I think
you can't,
it
yeah.
takes an effort.
Hmm.
And like you said, being constantly creative. That's unsustainable in some way. You're not just, you're not going to have a muse all the
Yeah.
time.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's just work and
Yeah.
keeping the muscles going. Like
Hmm.
I like to just scribble or make marks or
Hmm.
something like that just to keep it
To get
going,
your,
keep
yeah. And
something flowing.
I think
Usually
as well,
something will stem from it too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think with what you said earlier about kind of going to like galleries and stuff, I think that's like the biggest thing about dealing with kind of almost trying to avoid that creative burnout because otherwise you've got to kind of put it back in because if you're
Mm,
constantly giving it out, you're not you can take a little bit of inspiration from your own work, but really it needs to come from elsewhere. Like I think when you see other people's work and how they're expressing themselves, that and also like more widely, I guess for me, like the natural world, but also things like buildings and different places and architecture and the
mm.
way that the world is kind of formed. I think all of those can form basis of
Those
inspiration.
interconnected things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think every artist has a unique way of seeing those connections too.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely, I think.
Well, I know we are coming pretty close to the end of our session today, our little chat. So I want to go through just a couple more quicker questions. Let's talk a little bit about some tips and career advice you would have for other artists maybe joining us today. So I think we've pretty much covered things that would apply to creative block and ruts.
Mhm.
And um, what do you think is probably the most useful bit of advice you've been given about creativity, or specifically about traditional medium art, either
Mm.
materials or, yeah, what do you think has been the most useful?
Yeah, I think creating for you, like it's something that I think it can be quite difficult to do, I think, when there's pressures of social media and trying to sell your work and
Mm,
get it places. You can feel like you need to create work that sells or that that you think other people will like. And actually, I think the most useful piece of advice I've received was create work that you love, because like
mm,
create work for you, and then you will always love it. And actually, that will shine through to other people. Other people will connect with it because they will see your love for it, your emotion, your
mm,
passion. It will come through, and it will find its own audience. And it might take a little while because you're not trying to fit into a trend or please an algorithm, but you'll find your own audience, and you'll always
yeah.
like what you've made.
Mm.
And I think that that is probably the most important piece of advice.
I would absolutely echo that. Yeah, there's something about the authenticity of making for yourself. And like you
Mm-hmm.
said, it will find its audience. It may take some time. It may be a slow burner, but if you
Mm-hmm.
believe in it,
It will
then
get there.
yeah, the message
Yeah.
will get there. So, what do you think? Um, Actually, let's go with this. I'd like for you to imagine your dream art residency. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you didn't have time or money concerns at all, what what is your ultimate creative thing to
Mm.
tackle? And is it going to be that fully, mixed world of film and traditional art? So what would your ideal artist residency be? And do you have a passion project that you'd like to achieve there?
Oh man, it is such a
Or is that
broad,
just
it's
way
such a
too big?
broad question. I mean, because there's my brain going, this is the realistic answer, but then I'm going, but this whole question is
Because
theoretical, so
because
don't give the
some,
realistic
yeah,
answer.
because some artist residencies you might have constraints, like maybe you have no
Yes.
electricity, maybe you're roughing it. And I
Ooh.
think you're the kind of person who could totally get into that.
Yeah,
Like with your love of the moors and
yeah.
nature. Would you? So
Would
if we
I
change that
rough an
slightly,
artist residency?
would you totally unplug?
Oh, I don't know. It's hard, isn't it? Because I think so much of our work is reliant on social media and the internet. And so the idea of
Yeah.
like completely unplugging and then you're doing work, but you have no real way of showing it to other people. I don't know. That would
That would
be
be the ultimate doing it for yourself,
it
though,
would be
wouldn't
the
it?
ultimate doing it for yourself. I don't know actually. I think I because I absolutely know I could be by myself for absolutely eons, but then to have absolutely no connection with the outside world at all, I think I might find that hard after a little while because I think I'd be a bit like,
Yeah.
oh. So I don't know if I could completely unplug because I think I could do it for little
Yeah.
doses, but I think if that was like just forever, I think that would
Yeah.
be so hard because you'd have no feedback, you'd have no one to bounce it with as
Mm.
well. And I think,
It's interesting you bring
yeah,
that up, because I think community, even though many artists pursue their work in a very solo sort of manner, or isolate themselves intentionally,
mhm,
there is something about the connectivity of being around other humans and other
yeah,
creatives that really is beneficial.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I think a residency where you can kind of become completely immersed with your surroundings, I think would be ideal. So I think, I mean, I almost think that like it would be somewhere where I'd see wildlife that I hadn't really had that much experiencing, and then sketching,
Right.
having the opportunity to sketch it,
You
and
would have
kind of
been
work up.
you would have been a great Darwin, is what you're saying, because
Apart
traveling
from,
to far-flung
yeah.
places and sketching and learning about new species.
I think, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I could have been him, but like, I think that
Yeah.
the idea of kind of sketching those things, but also working them up with like local people, because I think
Yeah.
often, like, I guess, yeah, going somewhere with the idea of telling stories about the natural world there, but also perhaps more importantly about the people, the local people, about their relationship with the natural
Yeah.
world and about their communities, because I think so often in like so one of my first films was about a Zimbabwean wildlife artist. He's amazing. He's called Chichwan Ngube, and he's based in Victoria Falls. And that was all about him and his connection with the community, his connection
Mm.
with his children, and like honestly learning all about him, his artistic practice, and about how he uses that with the local community. You know, that would have been that kind of thing would be amazing to follow as an
Yeah.
artist. Like it was amazing to film, but like I think like fully staying somewhere for a while, wherever that is, you know,
Mm.
it could be in the UK, and immersing yourself within that local culture, within that community,
Yeah.
and working out what those really unique stories are. Because, like, Titch, for example, had such a unique relationship with a cheetah. And, like, that story only came out because I was with him for a couple of weeks and he just kind of went, oh, yeah, you know, there was this cheetah called Sylvester and I used to sketch him. And I was just like, how has this not come up earlier? So I think, yeah, maybe something that kind of
Yeah.
looks at the natural world, but also at those human relationships, because also that's the thing that other people really connect with.
Well, you are a storyteller. When you boil down everything that you do, you're telling a story, whether it's, about a conservation angle or a human angle, or you're marrying all these different methods of creativity
Mm-hmm.
into this storyteller fashion. And it's fascinating. And unfortunately, I would love to talk to you for another hour because I really want to dig deeper on a few of these things, but I think we'll have to do a part two sometime.
I'd like that.
So fantastic. Then, yeah, stuff, make it happen. um, so what would be I'm just going to ask a quick thing to wrap things up. What would be um your top advice for anyone today, like their intention for today as an artist, you know?
I think I mean, I'm assuming everyone has started, but if you haven't, just start. And if you have, keep going. Like,
Perfect.
oh, hello, headphones. But yeah, I think that's like
That's,
the most important thing.
yeah, absolutely. There's so much to explore, so much to do, so just keep doing it.
Hmm.
Right. Well, Alicia Hayden, thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to welcoming everyone back for another Daler-Rowney Artist Chat, bit of an interview, bit of a chat. And if you want to keep up with our guest, Alicia Hayden, as well as myself and Daler-Rowney, look us up on the social medias. We're everywhere. And I think Steph is putting some links in the chat. And of course, you can always pop over to Daler-Rowney's website and you'll find artist profiles, including Alicia's and my own. So thank you very much for joining us. And thank you, Alicia.
Thank
And
you. It's been a pleasure.
everybody have a lovely day. Cheers.